What are the average digital marketing agency's margins? Now, at this point, you're probably expecting some humming and hawing, and oh, well, it depends if this, that, whatever. It's all crap. It's 20%. It's 20%. A good agency should aim at 20%. And that has been the ubiquitous truth, by the way, for as long as I've been in this business, which is 15 years. And if you just Google average digital agency margins, with average net profit margin in 10 to 15% range and top end net margins in 15 to 25. Average margins, 11 to 20%. Agencies reporting even higher margins, around 20%. Everything in-house, you can expect 15 to 20%. Most CPAs say 10% profit margin is good and 15 is outstanding. Margin between 15 and 20%. So notice that there are some of these notes that aim, that refer to a lower profit margin level. And then a couple of these little caveats, like if everything's in-house. Like if you're outsourcing your work, yeah, your margins, so people are going to eat into your margins, just like if you're drop shipping a product, though. But if you're actually doing the work, if you're an agency that's doing the work, you should be making, or at least aiming for 20%. We aim for 20%. Now, do we always hit it? No. Sometimes for whatever reason costs go higher, we just choose to, reinvest or let's say overinvest and stuff. But 20% is what we want to aim at. And there's a reason that I'm being so transparent about this. I use this to disarm potential prospects anytime anybody asks for a discount. And I do that because it's like, look, we're running on 20% margins. So if I'm going to charge you, let's say it's $1,000 a month, just to use round numbers, I'm making $200 a month. How much of that would you like to take away from me? How much of the $200 that I actually get to put in my pocket at the end of the month, do you think I don't deserve? And incidentally, I'm not profitable the first 90 days. Generally speaking, we're actually in the red up until day 91, and then we can begin making money. It's not as though we're profitable at day 90. We haven't broken even, but it puts us in a position to begin profitability. And our clients will see that when they see how much work goes into these campaigns, because we're trying to earn a client for life, which is what we want. And that's perfectly fine, by the way. I'm not complaining. That's what I do to earn your business. But for my agency owners that are watching this channel, be transparent with your pricing. Be transparent with your profitability. If you're making 3,000% margins, you're probably scamming something, would be my assumption. And or you're in the SaaS space, which, God bless you. I would love nothing more than to be in that business, but I'm not smart enough for it yet. I happen to be in professional services, which incidentally, we're in a labor industry, y'all. This is, it's PPC and construction. We have the same problems, the same personnel issues, the same staffing issues, the same issues with scalability. So my margins are just as limited as, a home service advisor in a lot of ways, and for a lot of the same reasons. And so if you own an agency, be transparent about that. It puts you in a position of accountability. And to you and to your client, you have to know these numbers. You have to know what you make. If you don't know what you make and what you take home, and by the way, I'm willing to bet 80%, especially for small agency owners, is probably higher than that, but 80% of agency owners don't actually know what their bottom line looks like. And the reason that's a catastrophic error is you might be selling something, the old joke is, oh, we lose money on every deal, but we make it up in volume. You know what I mean? There's only, and I have been there, by the way. I was there with WebDev. We launched a company years ago called Sitemaze, where we were churning off these little teeny tiny websites for $300 or $400 a pop. And we were doing a ton of them. One of my clients was a Groupon alternative called Weekly Plus, and we basically built a website for every single one of their clients. And what I found over time when I did the math is if I factored my time into it, I was paying money to perform this service for people. But I didn't do the math in time, and I offered that for a year and a half at least, if not longer. So it put me at a disadvantage, but it also put my clients at a disadvantage because I was always stretched to the absolute thinnest layer that a person could be stretched, and it meant that I wasn't able or willing, to be frank, to do any of the over and above stuff that you want to be able to do for your customers. So know what your profitability is. Put yourself in a position to be profitable enough to provide the service that you want to provide. We all want to over-deliver. It needs to be commercially viable. It needs to be realistic. You need to be able to if somebody wants to call and hop on the phone with you or your client manager or a member of your team or whatever, you need to be in a position where you're like, okay, what is this going to cost me? And do I have the ability to afford that? And so back into this a little bit. Decide who do I want to be as an agency, as a company? What type of service do I want to offer? What do I want to be able to give my clients? And what do I need to be able to charge in order to do that? And then charge what you're worth. And I really mean that, by the way. Like, I feel like a lot of agencies charge what they think the client is willing to pay. A lesson that I've learned the hard way: charge what you're worth. I charge more than most PPC agencies, most smaller PPC agencies. It's really weird. We're kind of in this strange middle ground. In the software space, there's this. They actually, and I only know this because I deal with somebody who consults specifically with SaaS companies. But they recommend organizations to stay out of the middle ground that we're in. So, like, if you ever go look at software for, let's say, like email marketing, it's like on one end of the spectrum you have like, oh, it's $10 per user per month or whatever, and then on the other end of the spectrum it's $50,000 per user per year, and then right in the middle are these tools that are kind of trying to make it, but they haven't. They're sort of in a no man's land. That's kind of where we live in the world of PPC, but we've made it work. And we've made it work because we found the people that aren't yet ready for the ivory tower agency, so they don't want to, A, they don't want to go through all the pomp and procedure and BS and sign a year-long contract, and B, they don't want to spend 40% of their ad spend. They at this point can't afford to. They would rather put that into ad spend. So they don't want to spend 40% of their ad spend, but they've outgrown the little, dinky mom and pop PPC agencies are like, we'll do whatever you want for $5 a month. Please just give me your time, give me your business. So all that to say, charge what you're worth, and the clients that value that will find you. I've found that to be very true in my business. And then what's really cool is you get more of those clients. They kind of refer each other. They, birds of a feather. So that's to my agencies. To people that are watching this that are just customers, ask yourself whether or not you would be willing to do what it is you're asking somebody else to do for the price that they're offering. If somebody comes to you and says, like, yeah, I'm willing to perform this service, I'm willing to do it for $100 a month, you might like jump at that and think like, oh my goodness, that's the deal of the century. I'm going to absolutely take you up on that. Like, it's almost, you almost want to sign as fast as you can before they change their mind because they're suckers. But I mean, how long is that going to last? If somebody's selling you a $100 a month service and you're thinking to yourself like, gosh, I wouldn't do this for $100 a month. I wouldn't do it for $500 a month. And you might say like, well, they have better systems, proficiency, whatever. That could be true. But especially if you're dealing with a labor industry, if you're dealing with something that actually needs humans to intervene, I would be really careful getting papered up with an organization that's not charging you what you would want to charge if you were in that business. And you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you know how to do this math. You know exactly what that looks like. You don't even necessarily need to know how to do the job all the way. So, let's take something outside of my industry just so I can beat up on it a little bit harsher. But think web dev. When I was in the web dev business, we were charging $5,000 a month, $5,000 flat for a website. And then they would go up from there. And that was a basic website. It was $5,000, and then you could have a $100,000 website. And there are people that understand why, and then there were people that were just totally blown away. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how can you charge that for a website? And then all I do is say, go build a website for yourself. Come back to me later. Talk to me about how freaking hard that was, and then imagine trying to do that on behalf of somebody else. And now you're supposed to be a mind reader, and it gets iterative, and they want changes and whatever. So I wouldn't trust somebody who offered to build my website for $700 or whatever it is that some of these bargain basement entry level site builders charge. And then when you get the product, even if it looks good on the back end, it ends up being a train wreck. And we've all kind of been there as business owners. You sort of, you spring for the cheap one because you think you might be able to get something, and then, nothing's updated the way that it should be, nothing's sewn together properly. It's all just this monster spaghetti code. So all that to say, for providers, even if you're not in PPC, charge what you're worth, and make sure you know what your numbers are. You have to know your numbers. You have to be responsible to yourself and your clients. And get a good solid sense as to where you benchmark against other competitors, other alternatives. And then if you're looking for a provider, pay what the job is worth. As a young entrepreneur, I used to try to it's just the dumbest place to save money. It's the dumbest place to save money. If I needed help, or if I needed a freelancer or an employee or whatever, I'd go and I'd try to find the absolute rock bottom price, and it was always just a freaking nightmare. And I just learned the hard way that, man, if you go pay for quality, it's worth so much more by so many multiples. You know, like you could get an SEO for $10 an hour, or you can go pay Michael Cottom $350 an hour. And what's really interesting is 1 hour of Michael's time is worth more than 40 hours of this person's time. So this person's actually more expensive. I'm not an affiliate of Michael's, by the way. I'm just a really big fan. But he's a good example. He's the world's foremost authority in SEO. And I used to try to do SEO on the cheap. You know, and I went and hired UpCity and a bunch of other... I'm not a fan of them, is all I'll say. But a bunch of bargain basement, you know, jerks that don't actually do the job. And, you know... charge next to nothing too, so you almost can't blame them, and nothing got done. And not only did things not get done, but it actually put us in positions of like penalization and pretty significant issues. And then you go pay the authority, the high value prospect or person or whatever, and you know it's like snap your fingers and everything is it's as good as it could possibly be, and it happens faster and it happens efficiently, and they have systems and processes in place. So This transitioned a little bit to something of a soapbox, but I think it's a really important one. I think it's an important one for all of us to sort of build this ecosystem together to where we're willing to pay for quality. And what's really cool about that is when Michael charges me $350 an hour, I get way more than $350 an hour worth of value. So he charges like freaking top dollar, y'all, for SEO work. I mean, you know, I realize that there are some industries that get more than that. You might spend $500 an hour in the realm of like automation or development or whatever, but for SEO, I think $350 is that's top line, and it's worth it. It's worth it. So charge what you're worth, pay what the job is worth, and you're going to find really good prospects. And I just, you know, really good strategic partners and people to work with. The other fringe benefit to that, by the way, is the network that it puts you in. Michael now refers us work, and he has amazing clients. And I didn't start working with him with that in mind. But it's awesome now because he shoots me over a client, and I know they're pre-vetted. I know they have realistic expectations. I know they pay for value. And that's happened to me multiple times to where I'm working with a vendor that ends up becoming a strategic partner. And even if they're not necessarily a referral source, you know, like let's say they're not referring me clients, but they have other, you know, strategic partnerships or industry relationships, or, you know, just they're inside of a network, and I go to them and say, hey, do you know a person who does this? You just end up kind of rolling with the cooler crowd. You know, you've sort of paid for admission to this exclusive club of people that are just willing to do things the right way. So that's a long-winded way of justifying my fees. But we're more expensive than, you know, if you talk to 10 PPC agencies today, I bet you we're more expensive than 6 or 7 of them. And I'm okay with that because we do more than all of them. And it's not even that we're more expensive, it's that we actually do more of the work, and so we have to charge for it. And it might look like my sticker is higher than their sticker, but you know, if you think an expensive PPC agency costs you a lot, wait until you hire a cheap PPC agency. Because that's the other thing too, is this is a leverageable skill. Like, you're handing me your investment dollars to go try to multiply. And so if you pay the cheap PPC agency and they can give you a 2x return or a 3x return, and I can get you a 5 or 10x return, like, I'm not a math genius, but it doesn't take long to realize, like, oh, I'm being penny wise and pound foolish here. Think about how this relates to your own business. Like, where can you afford to charge more where you're actually doing the client a favor? You're putting yourself in a position to over deliver and provide more value. I think that's it. I think I'm done. I appreciate y'all watching. I hope that these little, you know, I realize this isn't exactly about Google Ads per se, but I've noticed on our channel that we're getting a lot of sort of, you know, entrepreneurial inquiries, and people are engaging with content that tends to be a little bit more diverse. So I'm broadening my horizons. Feel free to slap me on the wrist and just be like, stay your lane, dude. We don't care what your thoughts are on other things. And I would respect you for that feedback. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Only if you want to. And I'll see you tomorrow.